What's a red flag that men instantly notice in women, but most women don't realize they're showing it? A negative fixation on one's ex, even if this person truly was hurtful and crappy, is inevitably toxic to your current partner and connection with him. Something I wish a lot of people grasped is, past a certain point, nobody cares about your ex. They care about you and should be understanding about your past negative experiences, but if you're channeling resentment or mistrust or hurt from someone else to your current relationship, you're poisoning it out to the gate by inflicting those on someone who had nothing to do with your last relationship. Story 2. I have a friend who ignores me all the time and says it's because her phone doesn't have charge. I went to visit her on the weekend and her boyfriend was messaging her and she said, I can't be bothered with him. I'm going to tell him tomorrow that my phone is out of charge. Which I then instantly clocked that she probably does that with me. I just wish I confronted or called her out for it. Is it spiteful for me to do the same thing back to her? Story 3. Low effort. I feel like I'm always the one reaching out. I'm always the one starting conversations. I'm the one trying to keep things going. I'm the one making plans. I've chatted with women who insist they're interested but put in no effort, and when I start to ease up and give them space, they rush back, wondering why I'm no longer interested. It would be nice to wake up to a good morning text or have someone be the one to say, let's do this, or even if they feel the conversation is starting to hit a stale point, to try and save it. Not place all of that solely on me. Story 4. There's nothing wrong with talking about one's past life and past relationships from time to time. I think it's important to understand how your SO got to where they are today, how that affected them as a person, etc. That's not really first date material, though, nor is it something that needs to be a frequent topic of conversation, especially when a couple is spending time with other friends. At a certain point, it becomes clear that the person who keeps bringing it up is not a piece of their past relationships and is not ready for a new one. Story 5. I'm 81 and have been a widow since I was 62, but when I first met my husband, we talked about ideas, current events, politics, etc., as well as books and movies. We listened to music and only watched a little TV. We went out to eat and see movies, only occasionally concert or play. Basically, we spent our time falling in love and being besotted with each other. We stayed in love with each other until the day he passed away from glioblastoma. That diagnosis was an extremely hard one because it has a clear sense. 95% of the cases, the person receiving the diagnosis passes away within 15 months of receiving it. I still really miss him. Not that there weren't a few bumps in the road, like when living with anyone, but we were simpatico. I had a good marriage with a husband who let me be, as one of my friends put it. If you can't have that type of marriage, then don't bother because you will be unhappy. Story 6. The use of therapy language to disguise lack of emotional depth. Accurately and precisely discerning your emotions and thoughts is a good skill. Cleverly embellishing behaviors and feelings with social media, hip psychology, less so, and really just comes off as you not actually doing personal work. Body shaming. Being obsessed with bringing other people down over how they look, especially when it's things they can't control. Seeing women do this to guys is low. Seeing women do it to other women, even lower. Making fun of their partner in front of people. No idea why this is so common. It's not cute or funny and just makes you look like you hate each other behind closed doors. Story 7. Not offering to pay for anything. I always expect to pay for dates and rarely would let a date pay for anything, but the expectation that they'll pay for nothing ever is a red flag. One of my favorite memories of my wife and I while dating was when we wanted to go out on a date, but I didn't have any money as it was between paydays. She smiled and said she'd gladly take me out and pay. That was the best pizza I'd ever had. That was 14 years ago, and to this day, she's still a kind and sweet person that is always willing to meet you where you are and go together through anything. Story 8. This goes for both men and women. Not having friends of the same gender. Very generally speaking, men are better at spotting toxicity in other men, and women are better at spotting toxicity in other women. If they can't or won't maintain positive relationships with peers of the same gender, there's probably a reason. There's obviously exceptions to be had here, but the general rule still holds. If you meet a woman who claims to be one of the boys and claims she likes hanging out with guys because other women are too dramatic, spoilers, she's the one causing drama. Story 9. Demanding long-term commitments before there's really an established relationship. Like if you're telling me exactly how many kids you want and coercing me to agree in one of our first dates, you've gone way too far ahead of where we are now. We're supposed to be enjoying each other's company and finding common experiences. Goals and aspirations should come up organically. This type of behavior tells me that you're feeling pressed and are in turn putting that pressure on a potential mate. It's high-strung and neurotic and it's going to lead to additional stress. They don't want to waste more time because they've had relationships in the past that they'd put hope in and feel scorned because they think their exes didn't have the same long-term goals. So now, they're compelled to get more thoroughly upfront. But the truth is that their exes may have been open to kids, but were too pressured and stressed out to not be able to progress in the same timeline that she demanded. Story 10. One red flag that men might notice in women, which many women may not realize they are displaying, is a tendency to be overly critical or negative, especially about themselves or others. This can manifest as constant self-deprecation, gossiping, or a pessimistic outlook on life. While some may see it as being honest or relatable, it can come across as a lack of confidence or a negative mindset, which can be off-putting in a relationship. Recognizing and addressing this tendency can help foster a more positive and supportive dynamic. Story 11. Number 1, acting stupid or low IQ because that's apparently what hot girls do. Number 2, wear excessive makeup or have plastic surgery. Number 3, have designer everything. It's overpriced garbage and means you have a spending problem. Number 4, constant drama. The car that cut you off on your way to work isn't an interesting story. Nobody gives a crap. Number 5, talks badly about exes. Even if they didn't work out, they were still part of your life. Number 6, when they test you. Number 7, lack of accountability. If you made a mistake, that's fine. We can talk it out, but don't turn it around and make it my fault. Number 8, overly secretive. Phone down, holds her phone in a way to hide her screen, puts laptop on do not disturb when you're watching something together. Number 9, social media fixation. Story 12, caring too much about their appearance. I get it, you want to look nice, but can we see your real face once in a while? I'm a married dude, and the only thing I really liked about my now wife when I met her was that she wore no makeup whatsoever. When we started dating, she would wear a bit of lipstick on occasion, but rarely. Even back then, when going out with other people, I was never truly comfortable looking at women up close and realizing I was looking at a mask of several layers of makeup. They may look great at 2 feet or more, but not closer than that. Same with heels. Save them for special occasions, if at all. The concept seems medieval to me. I have no idea how many other dudes subscribe to this idea, though. Story 13. Not respecting or valuing your time. If she's constantly late or cancels last minute or acts like you were in the wrong for not calling or texting to clarify your already arranged plans, so she didn't get ready for them. If a plan is made, unless one of us has to rearrange, etc., there's no reason to clarify things. It should be expected to maintain our schedule, and if something comes up with you, the onus is on you to inform the other party as swiftly as possible. Time is our most precious resource in life, so please don't regard yours as any more important than mine. There's so many other things I could do other than getting ready or sitting around waiting. People have friends outside of their relationship, family, hobbies, and interests. Let them live and not be beholden to you. And this goes for all genders and orientations across the spectrum. Story 14. Most of these are psychological, and to preface, most of these things are not even her fault, necessarily. It is what it is for men seeking to date them. Here's my list, and I hope it helps any of these types of girls seek out counseling and heal in some way. For the dudes, steer clear of all these girls. And for us dudes already in a relationship with one, you have to enforce healing and then create space for her to do so. Male validation. You notice her need for validation from men, typically intimately, but not always. Those girls are what we guys call broken. There's a deeper truth behind it, of course, that she will need to work through as to why she craves a man's approval, but we steer clear of these girls. They'll be fun for a few weeks, but the root of her mental health will shine through eventually. No female friends. Girls who say, I prefer to hang out with guys than girls. That's because men will fall over themselves to give her attention and will certainly treat her differently. But she's on an even playing field with other girls, and so they're not going to be as nice as the same guys are. These girls are insecure, one, but also her inability to navigate her own natural social order is quite telling. I should steer clear of these girls, too. She's the girl who sleeps with your friends. Hates her dad or brothers. The moment I hear a girl say this, I immediately assume she either has toxic feminist propaganda crap running through her head or she has trauma from something in her life. Both are equally as bad for the men in her life. She needs to sort that out, but these girls have a lot of mental baggage that will rear its head as things get serious. All of her angst for men will get projected onto you. No thanks. Doesn't know her value. You can ask any man alive what they bring to the table in a relationship. Every single one will give very similar answers, but you can't ask most women today what they bring to a relationship. They have no idea. Most will have a few genuine ideas to answer this question, but will quickly recoil as they remember how strong a feminist they are and the patriarchy and mansplaining and toxic masculinity and boss switch and I don't need a man. So for most modern women who think this way, see ya. Look for the sweet girls who simply enjoy being nice and supportive and don't like drama and puts values and trust in you as a man. Story 15. Psychobabble. Specifically when they share a self-diagnosis or talk about someone they dated who had a personality disorder or whatever. Bonus points if they say their therapist told them so. Down the line, they'll either blame bad behavior in their disability or they'll diagnose you with a personality disorder when you say or do something they don't like, and it's all based on whatever they watched or read on social media. I used to work in a public conservator's office. Part of my job was investigating referrals for a conservatorship. I know what mental disabilities look like, especially ones bad enough to be debilitating, and I know no therapist worth their degree will diagnose somebody without interviewing them first. That's a fantastic way to get sued. Date astrology girls. Similar issues, but I guarantee they'll remember your birthday. Story 16. When I see these on dating apps, I run a mile from experience. If you can handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. The Marilyn Monroe quote doesn't indicate there's much going on upstairs, and the idea that they're a princess and should be handled is a major red flag. Not into drama. These ones are always into drama. Not looking for a father for my kids. They're looking for exactly that. Talking about their exes on a first date. Funny now, but I went on a date with this beautiful woman and she literally gave me her whole life story in about an hour and 15 minutes monologue. I was so uncomfortable. I felt like I was interviewing a celebrity. I would ask a question, she'd reply, and then there'd be silence until I asked another. When she finished, I asked her if there was anything she would like to know about me, and she said no. I was so confused, so I wrapped things up. Later on, I sent her a text and asked if she was okay and if there was something I did to annoy her, and she said I talked too much. Story 17. For me, it's about how much they invest into the initial conversations. If I'm talking at you because you just reply with short-cut answers and never ask me anything, ever, I'm out. You're either a bad conversationalist, don't have time to get into a relationship right now, or you aren't interested or have more interesting prospects, and that's fine. But I'm not here to lock horns with other dudes. Relationships are a collaboration, and if we can't collaborate at the earliest stage of a relationship, then I don't feel confident we'll be able to collaborate with bigger, more important crap later. My partner of almost 3 years and I never ever get bored of each other. Love to spend time together and talk to each other and get to know each other more and more every day. I followed my instinct that that person for me would be someone who puts the time and effort into our conversation, and she did. And now we're very happy together. I watched enough sitcoms and shows where the husband and wife hate each other, but we're in love to realize that enthusiasm in one another as people is critical to a happy and healthy relationship. You become more in tune with one another and grow to appreciate everything that makes them them because you invested the time to truly get to know them. Don't get a partner just to be there. Get a partner to truly be your partner. Story 18. I had an ex that would recall any event where she wronged me as literally just swapping our places. Kinda hard to pretend I wasn't abandoned at a convention I didn't want to go to and had to stay the night with friends who lived nearby. Or pretend it was my fault that when we boarded a train I pointed out I was going the wrong direction, ended up indeed going the wrong direction and getting us lost. Yes, I'm sure I disagreed with my own statement and insisted we go the wrong way because being lost at night in a seedy neighborhood is my favorite thing. It's just so bizarre hearing someone recount an event perfectly accurately except they've swapped your roles so they can avoid fault and be angry at you. Story 19. Superficiality. Looking good, appreciating art, etc. are all fine things. When you make fun of someone because of how they look or demonstrate that appearance is at the top of your value hierarchy, can wear task-appropriate clothing because of how it looks, for example, it sends a strong signal that you will be more concerned with how things appear than how things actually are. With that mindset, you can be induced to abandon your partner because your friends think they're odd or don't match their aesthetic. You can be driven to spend irrationally and hate the things you have already bought because of some new trend. Your whole life is geared around your perceptions of other people's perceptions of you. Sprinkle a little insecurity into the mix and you have constant dissatisfaction. This is one of the various ways a rich person can become miserable and near guarantee that a relationship will become a full-time toxic job if failed attempts to please an unquenchable desire. The green flag, appreciation for variety and quirkiness. Looking for a way to see what cool and beautiful things people are into, then demonstrating a bit of humility and wonder. Story 20. I haven't seen this yet, but fake crap on your body. Fake lips, fake tatas, fake tan, so much makeup it's now fake skin. I want to date a person, not their warped ideal of what a person should be. What else is fake? Do they judge me for not being perfect? I'm sure people will comment on what society expects or something, but even disregarding the whole find someone who likes you for you, not someone who wants toxic stereotypes. What if you found a man with shoe inserts to be taller or fake abs? What if a guy took out $1 million loan just to have an ATM receipt with $1 million on it? Story 21. Identifying as having daddy issues. It's happened twice. First time the intimacy was great, but the constant games and emotional turmoil, definitely not worth it. The second time I saw the glint in her eye, she said it, and I knew what would be coming if I stuck around. I didn't stick around. In a way, I guess it is using trauma as an excuse to treat people badly. I think really it's just a game to see how much the other person will put up with. Just like a little kid, except we're adults and there are real-life consequences. I'd be interested to speak platonically with women who identify as having, or used to have daddy issues about what drives that sort of behavior because, to me, it's crazy. Story 22. Leaning heavily into traditional gender roles, but only the ones that benefit them. I can't tell you how many women I've come across that subscribe to a trad wife or soft life ideals while simultaneously wanting a progressive partner who believes in equality. As someone who was raised in the church, I've seen a lot of what I would call traditional relationships, and they seemed happy. I found that culture stifling and oppressive, and I left about as soon as I could start making decisions for myself. I adopted much more progressive, egalitarian ideals as an adult, but it's pretty frustrating to me that so many women who profess to hold these same ideals cling so tightly to traditional gender roles that benefit them. They expect the men of their lives to pay for everything, often even expecting to be a stay-at-home spouse without children that barely lifts a finger. I'm sorry, you gotta choose. The sort of man who believes in those traditional gender roles is not the sort of man who believes in equality, and the sort of man who believes in equality expects it in return. You don't get to pick and choose between conflicting ideologies. Story 23. Women who see other women as enemies or potential competition. They frequently buy into a lot of anti-feminist nonsense and generally just toxic to be around. My ex was like this. She's actually a really sweet person in general, but she just could not be around other women, and by extension, neither could I. My favorite example of this is we were playing the celebs you find attractive game. Basically, who you get a pass for if the situation presents itself. I honestly didn't have a celeb crush at all, so I just said Flo from the insurance commercials. For months, she wouldn't stop asking me what it was about Flo. She had to know what she lacked that Flo had. For Christ's sake, it was a joke. Story 24. How materialistic they are. Not all by any means, and men can be too, but more to the ritual, the emotional connections, and when a woman says she's the same but starts talking about all the expensive things she needs from me, and phrasing it along the lines of, I can possibly settle for a ring less than 10,000. I'm out. It's not about the stuff, but what it symbolizes, and a gumball machine ring can have as much, if not more than that 20,000 plus ring. Not against an expensive ring, other than when I'm told the more expensive, the more it symbolizes. You can apply that to more than a ring. And yes, I have a lot of stuff, so I'm not against owning stuff as much as placing limits in our relationship based on a price tag. Story 25. Honestly, I will say entitlement and self-esteem issues. I'm a fairly well-known public figure where I live. The first red flags I deal with usually have to do with how women perceive me. Number 1, feeling entitled to what I have and what I can do for them. Number 2, trying to take jabs at my public profile or make jokes at my expense regarding my achievements. Never let it go past the first day if I encounter either one of these red flags. I ask you out because I like you and want to get to know who you are, not because I owe you anything. And if you need to break me down, even subtly, in order to feel comfortable around me, that probably says a lot about your insecurities and we're probably not a good match. Uncle warned me about that. A man can only climb as high as his woman allows him. She will either support you and inspire you to do more and feel threatened by your potential and try to sabotage you. Pick carefully, fellas. Story 26. Bringing up their past traumas or experiences to justify today's negative behavior. If they acknowledge it to apologize, that's one thing, but if they justify why they acted or reacted the way they did because of an older experience, it shows a huge lack of willingness to take accountability and grow. If they have a behavior they know isn't good or toxic and repeatedly do it anyway, then attribute it to a past situation or someone else, partner or parent, essentially teaching them that behavior. Be super aware of broken promises and make sure to set strict boundaries for yourself. I've had relationships where girls are jealous and show unhealthy trust issues. Then they blame snooping or feeling insecure or making a comment on past partners being untrustworthy or their partners having anger issues. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 27. The inability to ever admit they're wrong or did something wrong and then apologize for it. It shows lack of accountability, which makes personal growth nearly impossible. Any communication about their flaws then becomes nothing but deflection and denial. If you can't discuss your issues, you cannot move past them. The first step in personal growth is admitting that change is needed. If you lie to yourself that you're perfect and never need to change, you never grow. Story 28. If every prior relationship you were in was all the guy's fault and to take no accountability for your part in the relationship failing, I'm getting sussed out. 1 or 2 boyfriends? Sure, I get it. Crappy people. But if you say every boyfriend you ever had was toxic and you've had quite a few, I find it hard to believe you're the victim 5+ times while playing no part in it. Plus, I then will assume that if we break up, you'll trash me to your friends and blame me for everything, even though I'm a pretty good dude. Story 29. Asking about astrological signs. I say this because a lot of women I know are not really woo-woo, but will bring up signs as just an icebreaker. The problem is that once you mention astrology, I stop participating in the date and I start trying to ascertain whether or not you actually believe in astrology. It came up at a party and the split between the guys and gals was pretty stark. Most of the women didn't care much whether a potential date actually believed in horoscopes, and most of the men said it was a tremendous turnoff or a complete deal breaker. Now, obviously, if you are way into astrology and need a partner to be cool with that, then this might be the first thing to go to and save everybody's time. Story 30. You know how women always say men don't share, or do we talk about random stuff? We know a great deal about our friends, and a red flag in most women for me is the willingness to talk like that, or rather, the willingness to share what they are doing. For example, if someone asks me what I'm doing at any time, I can usually say, take the train home, watching some TikTok, chatting, relaxing. What about you? 9 times out of 10, the reply is nothing. Great, and then it inevitably spirals. Suppose I've known you for over a month but know nothing about how you live, your family, your friends. That's a massive red flag. Share information without requiring me to drag it out like pulling my teeth in a back alley. If I ask a bro what he's doing, there's a 10 out of 10 chance he's sending me a picture with an explanation, maybe even asking me for help. Only one girl I've ever known was like that, and she moved away when we were in high school. Story 31. Making excuses for horrendous communication habits. No, you're not bad at texting. No, you're not busy for weeks. No, you're not bogged down with so many things to respond to a hello. You don't want to talk, and you aren't actively communicating that to me. If you don't want to talk and aren't interested, that's okay, but don't start making excuses for it and leading me on into thinking you're still interested or you're trying your best when you're very clearly not. I had a friend who did this to me. I called her out on it and she said, well, you could have triple texted, after she didn't respond to my text from weeks ago and said, I'm bad at communicating. Just not worth the time and effort to chase people around to communicate. Do basic communication 101 and guys will greatly appreciate it. Story 32. What I consider a red flag has changed over time. I used to have the I'll fix it because I'm the hero of my own story complex. I gravitated towards women with kids whose baby daddy abandoned them or treated them like crap. They were green flags because I knew how to make things better. I had a lot of bad experiences with that. I did eventually get lucky. I met a woman 27 years ago with 2 kids who really needed a good man in their life. She knew the mistakes that she had made in her first marriage, owned them, and set about making herself better. We're still together, and I don't regret it. Yes, we've both made plenty of mistakes, but we admit it. But if I was a single man in the market today, I'd be so horrified I'd probably stay single forever. So many women, and men too, to be fair, but you asked about women, in today's world have never done a single thing wrong in their opinion despite a plethora of failed relationships. They tell you about their life and you can see the things they've done, but they always have an excuse. They're always the victim. Major red flags these days. I want to add this. I know there are still good women out there, but they are so few and far between that it wouldn't be worth the effort to find them if I became single at my age. Story 33. A woman who acts emotionally hurt by simple conversational topics as if you were intentionally trying to inflict pain, and why shouldn't you already know what their triggers are? I wish I could say I only fell in for that once, but it took at least 10 times for me to realize that this is the worst red flag ever. Meaning that no matter what you do to compensate or prove that it was never your intention to hurt them, it will never be enough for them to forgive you. It was, however, always their intention to take your innocuous question or assumption about anything to do with something personal and make you feel terrible for bringing the topic up in the first place, so that you're always off balance and attempting to make up for some perceived pain that you have caused them by having the nerve to not know what exactly and entirely their history is and every one of their triggers just by being in their company. Story 34. The biggest one for me is not so much hearing about their exes, but what is said. I've been on several dates where ladies start talking about the restraining order they have in their ex. I never ruled them out over it. In fact, my current wife had to get one in her ex-husband. Where they lose me is when I start hearing context. For example, she has restraining orders and several exes. Several exes have restraining orders on her. Another that was sad was that the ex physically harmed her. She had him put in jail, got a restraining order, yet got back together with him. Turns out she had also physically harmed him and had also had police called on her. Several times. I'll pass, thank you. By the way, she went full-on psycho when I politely told her I had fun but was going on a different direction, and was one of just the few ladies I dated that had to be blocked on all my forms of communication. I should say, she was gorgeous. I guess some guys will date crazy or hot. Not me. Attractive as a dime a dozen. It's not worth crazy. Listen up, guys. I'm serious. I would never hold someone being harmed against that person. Where I start running is when it's a pattern of cruelty or restraining orders. Don't care if he's rich, beautiful, and everything else. I'm out. Another, from when I was single, was a ridiculous list of requirements listed online. I'm 5'11". Many ladies say 6, 6'1", 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. I had ladies reaching out to me repeatedly wanting to chat or meet, but their list of criteria clearly says I don't make the cut, for one reason or another. Often very petty or insane reasons. I would turn them down left and right, even had several update their lists. One even tried putting up a new profile months later, thinking I would forget. Anyone who has a ridiculous list of crazy, nutty, or unrealistic demands is not for me. I was looking for a sincere relationship. I kept my mind open and ended up meeting my wife. I now have the best marriage I could ever imagine. Dating should not be shopping for a match on paper. It should be meeting new people, looking for something you never found, something unique. Story 35. When you judge me for things I enjoy, it makes life, which is already miserable enough, even worse. You're trying to make me feel bad or unworthy to date just because I find some kind of joy in this awful world. Mind you, this is within reason. If I nerd out about nuclear bombs and the timeline of ICBMs, it's understandable if it's not your cup of tea. I'm not saying every esoteric subject has to be interesting to you, but if I mention I like to play games and you look like you just ate a lemon, yeah, no. I don't want to feel like being myself is a minefield I need to navigate with you. Thankfully, I'm 14 years married, but I don't miss the dating game of feeling like I have to pretend to be someone else who doesn't like the things I like because it's not attractive. If me being myself is a problem, that's a red flag for me. Story 36. Women have the same complaints, but men often take their own common behaviors for granted. These include emotional immaturity, narcissism, egocentrism, lack of reciprocity or respect, entitlement, assuming they have only the valid emotions in the room, stating judgments or opinions as fact, emotional hijacking, claiming that the definition of mansplaining is actually men's historical experience of conversations with women, delegating service roles to men as providers while selectively choosing roles that suit themselves, e.g., managing the house, plans, partner, finances. Both genders blame the other for these behaviors, but since they aren't often dating their peers, they don't notice it. The performance of these toxic behaviors is also culturally normalized based on gender, which means this conversation basically never ends. Story 37. If her friends have any control over her social media, that's a red flag. Once talked to a girl whose friend was logged into her social media on her phone. I never asked why, but later found out she hooks up with people on a dating app when she travels. Lets her friend have access to her social media in case she goes missing or something. This raises a serious question. Maybe you shouldn't be sleeping with random people when you have no idea if you're compromising your safety, especially in an unfamiliar city. I later found out she's a bit of a psychopath. Her friends apparently tell her how to feel and what to think, as she would lash out or act wildly if not calmed by them. Either of these situations alone would be awful enough, but to have two massive negative outcomes stemming from the same initial red flag is particularly concerning. Story 38. Biggest red flag? Women who are turned on by bad boys and get the ick from nice guys. This is more common than you think, and it's the biggest red flag of them all. Let me explain. Groucho Marx's most famous joke is, "I never want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member." It's a cracking joke because it's funny, but it also hints at a deep underlying truth. For women that are interested in bad boys, what they're really interested in is guys that would never be interested in them. They actually prefer players, guys that might just sleep with them and then never call them. The underlying factor is that they deem these guys very high value. They regard the men that actually love them as low value because they see themselves as low value. If they see themselves as low value, they simply cannot respect any man that loves them. These women are essentially always going to be unhappy. They're not suited for relationships. They are only excited by emotionally detached partners and will waste decades in situationships and crushing on guys that are not remotely interested, or are only interested in a casual side of things, or simply want a bit of intimacy now and then. They will often get to about 45 and wonder why they're still single. They will tell you they never met the right guy, but they did meet several right guys. It's just that the right guys give them the ick. Story 39. I'm surprised that I haven't seen this one come up yet, so here he goes. Not taking financial responsibility for themselves. The number of women I've met or dated who don't seem to have any intention of working, at minimum a full-time job, in order to be able to pay for their home and maybe have some leftover money to take a small vacation once a year is shocking. I suspect, and I could be wrong here, that way too many women have duped into the princess mindset that someone will come along and take care of them. Most of these women I'm referring to do pay for their day-to-day items like food and rent, but all of them have zero ability to buy a home and zero intention of ever trying to buy one. Yes, I know the real estate market can be crazy, but that's not an excuse to not work hard and earn for yourself. I made a very conscious choice in my early 20s to work as much as I could instead of traveling so that I could provide for myself and have some financial security in the future. When I talk to the women I'm referring to about this type of stuff, it's so surprising how none of them seem to even care about financial security or their future finances, let alone that they'll always be at the mercy of their landlord for the rest of their lives, until someone who has worked comes along and provides for them. They will spend so much money on clothes and yoga retreats and healing oils and meditative practices and dogs, but do nothing to provide for themselves and their future. I don't personally know any women who have purchased a home on their own, yet I do know a lot of men who have purchased their homes. Basically, it seems like some women find excuses to justify not having to work very much or make sacrifices. With all that said, I know for sure that there are women out there who do work hard and do own their homes and provide for themselves. I just haven't dated any of them. I also know that there are lots of men who also fit into this financial irresponsibility. Story 40. I'm gay, so I don't really know that well, but I do know of all the girlfriends my brother ever brought home. The ones that were overly affectionate immediately piqued my mom and grandmother's spider sense. He always liked his girlfriends that didn't put up with his crap. They called him out on things, put him in the doghouse when he deserved it and had good manners. The girlfriends that would rub your shoulders at dinner or insist on holding hands when out as a family, etc. Needed to be destroyed, in their opinion. According to what I learned, this all seemed a little performative, and the older women in my family would always tell my brother to snoop through their phones, and bam! He always somehow ended up catching them messaging other guys or talking crap about him to their friends. There's an appropriate level of affection for the public and around family and friends, but the girls who bat their eyelashes and giggle and blush and cause no conflict are freaking playing you, bruh. If a girl actually likes you, she'll challenge you and be honest and hold herself to higher standards. Story 41. My assumption is that we're talking about heteronormative dating with the intent of a longer relationship or friendship. There are some of the red flags that I learned the hard way before ending up in a loving, nurturing marriage. I've experienced every one of these red flags in my own skin, and I wish my father or mentor had given me these watch-outs earlier in life. The bottom line is to remember you are not here to fix anyone. Lack of gratitude. A woman doesn't have to constantly do a fake voice praising you every 5 seconds. However, entitlement in the dating phase will lead to nightmares down the road. Any iteration of the belief that she must be accepted exactly as she is. Lack of discipline with appearance, substance misuse, or fitness. Obsessive behavior in any direction is exhausting to deal with, and it is not possible to work through it without the subject of seeking professional help. Zealous support of street work and/or exaggerated intimate proclivity. This one can be worked around depending on the situation. However, it is a massive undertaking with a very narrow margin for success. You will most likely get burned. Watered down, reactionary feminism in the same boat as SJW. This one is difficult to explain in a post, so I'll defer to the if you know of being in these types of relationships or friendships. There are, of course, more warning signals, but I've stuck to those that will be very difficult, if not impossible, to work through. Story 42. Are you talking about in general or in relationships? The answer for me would be the same red flags that you notice in men who don't realize they're showing it. I don't think this is a gender issue, but a character flaw. The opposite of this, I think, is being self-aware. We humans tend to put people into general groups to help us deal with them better. If you're looking for red flags instantly when you meet someone, you will find them. We all have positives and negatives. It may be better to treat each woman or man as a brand new individual without the baggage of the past. We're all just people. So look for positives first and you will find them. Then the red flag will become something more tolerable because you really like the person and you may be able to discuss the red flags you notice directly with the person. I'm sorry for the ramblings, but I think we all need to be a little more positive and tolerant nowadays. Story 43. For me personally, I have the following turnoffs. I think a lot of guys also share my points, but they articulate them in shallow and reductive points like gold digger, slutty, loyal, not fit, acting a certain way, etc. I personally hate the manosphere descriptions of gold digger types because it's quite reductive to women and the single dimensionalities are disrespectful to both men and women. Here's what I judge based on. A lack of personal and character depth that reveals itself through the lack of conversational ability in the topics we cover. It's not about having hobbies to talk about, but being thoughtful and being able to see beyond the surface level qualities. Having the same talking points as any rando off the street is a huge turnoff. I'd rather talk about the meta aspect of social movements or something more interesting where there's well-reasoned perspectives for deviating from mainstream. What I like to call $1,000 a month faces. Lashes, nails, cut or collared hair, high-end designer everything. There's a balance here though. Too many women I meet place a disproportionate effort in appearance. If they are professional or the professional look is necessary for them to earn their keep, it's not a big deal, but I've met way too many minimum wage girls that are placing all their money into appearances, and that's a huge turnoff because of the lack of ability to allocate money into decent priorities. Junk food diets or lifestyle. I want her to be both healthy and sexy, and proud, and I want to be the same for her. That's not happening with a lifestyle of sitting around, eating chips, and watching TV. For balance, I sit around all day, but at least I hit various goals for exercise and diet most days. I'm looking for general discipline with life. It will serve both of us well. It's not about what she does, but about what her health span trajectory looks like. Obsessiveness with how she presents to the world. The house has to look a certain way. We need to be in certain neighborhoods. We need to be able to show up on social media with a certain look. Gotta drive luxury cars, etc. I love the woman that can gussy up for the occasion, but is more rooted in the pragmatic realities of life. Shows up ready to work, not presented as some power couple or arm candy. The lack of competence. She should know how to live, pay bills, manage her belongings, fix things, or know who to call. We're talking basic stuff like taking one's car to the mechanic for maintenance and stuff like that. Life drama. If she has baby daddy problems, crappy friends, etc., her judgment for people's character or situations is badly off and is going to likely be a lifetime of pain she brings in from other terrible people. Being man-centered. If she's trying to appease me and who I am and my guy things, I'm not interested in having a life assistant. I'm interested in someone with her own life, interests, ambitions, etc. Yes, someone who takes care of certain life aspects for me is nice, but I'm a big boy that can make my own breakfast, do my own laundry, etc. I want a partner to build life with. Most women that meet this criteria are pretty rare, but to be fair, the men that these aforementioned women would be into are also incredibly rare. We men in general need to up our game. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.